Stick with me for this one, because this story right here, this is the kind of NASCAR story that fans say they want more of. And honestly, it might be one of the most important underdog journeys happening in the garage right now. Because while everybody is focused on Cup Series drama, playoff fights, manufacturer wars, and superstar contracts, there's a young driver quietly grinding his way through one of the hardest climbs in motorsports. And I'm just gonna say it straight. What Lavar Scott is doing right now deserves way more attention than it's getting. This isn't some rich kid fast track story. This is a guy who literally lived in a camper near Charlotte Motor Speedway chasing a dream, biked to the race shop every day, came from a family that worked on race cars with their own hands, and now he's trying to survive full-time competition in the NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series against veterans who have been doing this for years. And here's the thing, the numbers may not jump off the page yet, but if you actually watch the races, if you understand development, if you understand how hard this level is, you can see something building here. And heading back to Dover Motor Speedway this weekend, his home track, this suddenly feels like a massive moment in his career, because this isn't just another race anymore. This is a test to see whether Lavar Scott is becoming a legitimate NASCAR prospect, or just another talented driver trying to survive the system. And hey, real quick, if you are a true NASCAR fan like me, go ahead and drop a like and subscribe to the channel. NASCAR Nation news is just getting started. We are pushing for our next subscriber milestone, and it's all about real talk from fans who live this sport every week. All right, let's get into it. So let's start with where this whole thing began. Lavar Scott was basically born into racing. His mom raced drag cars in regional events. His grandfather worked on micro sprints. His brother raced too. Racing wasn't a hobby in this family, it was life. And honestly, some of the details from his childhood sound straight out of an old school racing movie. His grandfather would literally put an egg under his foot to teach him throttle control. Think about that for a second. That's old school racer mentality right there. That's not simulator training. That's not corporate development coaching. That's grassroots racing education. And at just 5 years old, Lavar was already racing quarter midgets on dirt. Now here's why this matters. A lot of drivers reach NASCAR with polished resumes, sponsorship support, and a carefully managed path. Lavar Scott's journey feels completely different. It feels earned, step by step. And honestly, that matters in today's NASCAR environment because fans connect with authenticity. Then came one of the biggest turning points of his life, getting accepted into NASCAR's Drive for Diversity program at 16 years old. But even then, nothing came easy. The guy literally moved into a camper at the Z-Max campground near Charlotte Motor Speedway with his grandmother. He rode a bike to Rev Racing shop every day while trying to make a name for himself in the summer shootout. I mean, seriously, think about the sacrifice there. Most people would have quit. Most teenagers would have looked at that situation and said, this is too hard. But that grind is exactly why this story hits differently now. Because every single lap he runs today is built on years of sacrifice nobody saw, and you can actually see the progression. He wins in late models in 2021 and 2022. Then he moves into ARCA competition. And this is where things get really interesting. Because statistically, his ARCA career was actually better than a lot of people realize. He never won a race, and unfortunately, fans only remember wins sometimes, but look deeper. Top 5s in over half of his starts. Top 10s in nearly 78% of races. That is consistency. That is development. That is learning how to survive long seasons. And honestly, sometimes not winning immediately can actually help a young driver develop patience and race management instead of just relying on raw speed. Now fast forward to 2025. He gets a shot at 2 O'Reilly Series races with Alpha Prime Racing. And this right here may have changed everything because Tommy Joe Martins clearly saw something in him. Not just speed, not just talent, but composure, adaptability, potential. Enough potential to commit to a full-time ride for 2026. And if you know the series, you know opportunities like that do not just fall into your lap, especially for drivers trying to establish themselves financially and competitively at the same time. Now let's talk about that debut at Dover last year, because this part says a lot about Lavar Scott as a driver. Huge emotional moment. Friends and family everywhere, pressure through the roof, and he still qualifies into the race. That alone mattered. But then came the mistake on pit road during his first live pit stop, and honestly, that's the exact type of thing rookie drivers struggle with. Fans see mistakes and immediately panic, but learning race procedure at this level is brutal. Everything happens faster, the pressure multiplies. One tiny error destroys your entire day. He drops back to 28th before weather shortens the race. But here's the important part. He didn't let that moment destroy his confidence, because the very next opportunity at Gateway, he rebounds with a top 20 finish. That's growth. That's resilience. And I think that was the moment where he realized he actually belonged here. You can even hear it in his own words when he basically said, "Okay, I can do this series." And confidence is everything in NASCAR. Everything. A driver who believes he belongs races differently than a driver trying not to fail. Now let's talk about this rookie season, because the stats honestly tell a fascinating story. Through 13 races, 4 top 20 finishes. Best finish of 15th at Rockingham Speedway, average finish around 24th. Now, on paper, casual fans may shrug at that, but if you understand equipment levels and rookie adaptation curves, that's actually solid progress, especially considering where their expectations started. Remember, their original goal was basically just to consistently crack the top 25. Now they're chasing top 20s every week. That's a huge mentality shift, and here's why that matters. When goals inside a race team change during a season, that means confidence inside the organization is growing. The driver feels it, the crew chief feels it, the owner feels it. And suddenly everybody starts pushing harder because they realize there's more speed available than they expected. Tommy Joe Martins even admitted the first month was frustrating because they kept getting caught up in incidents outside their control. But over the last month, the consistency has started showing up, and one thing Martin said really stood out to me. He talked about Lavar becoming more confident, asking for changes in the race car. That is huge, because one of the hardest things for young drivers is learning how to communicate with the team. Anybody can say the car is loose. Elite drivers explain exactly what the car is doing, where it's happening, and how it changes throughout a run. That's the difference between surviving races and building winning race cars. And it sounds like Lavar Scott is starting to develop that skill right now, which honestly may be more important long-term than a random top 10 finish. Now let's get to the bigger picture here, because I think this story says something important about NASCAR development as a whole. NASCAR desperately needs stories like this to succeed, not manufactured hype, not social media branding, real racing stories. Drivers who claw their way upward through sacrifice and hard work, because fans connect emotionally to that. And I'm just going to say it. If Lavar Scott keeps improving, he could absolutely become one of those drivers fans naturally rally behind, especially because his growth feels authentic. Nothing about this has looked rushed. Nothing about this has looked fake. Every step has looked earned. And now he heads back to Dover, his home track, with family and friends watching again. Except this time, the expectations are completely different. Last year it was, can he make the show? Now it's, can he go compete? That is a massive difference mentally. And Dover is not a forgiving place to learn either. That track exposes weaknesses fast. Tire management matters, rhythm matters, patience matters. You make mistakes at Dover. The concrete eats you alive. So if he can put together a clean, competitive race there, people inside the garage are going to notice, because the industry pays attention to drivers who improve steadily, especially drivers who maximize equipment. And that may be the biggest thing to watch with Lavar Scott right now. Not whether he wins immediately, not whether he suddenly becomes a superstar overnight, but whether he keeps making those small developmental jumps every single month, because that's how real NASCAR careers are built. One adjustment, one lesson, one race at a time. And honestly, this Dover weekend feels bigger than the finishing position itself. It feels like a measuring stick moment for where his future could go from here. So now I want to hear from you guys. Do you think Lavar Scott has what it takes to eventually become a legitimate NASCAR star? Or is the climb through these national series just too difficult in today's racing world? And what would impress you more this weekend at Dover? A top 15 finish, or simply another clean, consistent race showing long-term growth? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because I know NASCAR fans are going to have strong opinions on this one. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you like the video, subscribe to NASCAR Nation News, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next big NASCAR story.